This is Good Day Street Talk.
Welcome to Good Day Street Talk. I'm Ty Hernandez. Today, as we celebrate the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we also celebrate his message of giving back to the community. Find out how some local organizations are doing just that and how you can volunteer. And then Haiti, 1 year later, how communities in our area are continuing their efforts to help those living in a country devastated by last year's earthquake. But first, a tragedy of a different kind that has struck a chord with the entire nation and has had an impact here at home. The shooting of Arizona Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords has led to feelings of both shock and anger, but it's also led to a lot of questions. What does the future hold for the safety of our representatives in Washington, for constituents, and for political debate in the country? Joining me now, immigration attorney Michael Wilds, who's a former federal prosecutor and the former mayor of Englewood, New Jersey, and David Webb, host of the David Webb Show on Sirius XM Patriot, and the co-founder of Tea Party 365 in New York City. I want to welcome you both. Now, in the wake of the Arizona shooting, there's been a lot of focus on the tone of political debate in this country. Now, it's clear that wasn't the shooter's motivation in this case, but what do you make of the discussion that has ensued about the tone of political debate in this country?
Well, sadly, what happened within hours of the shooting was an attack by far-left elements. I won't ascribe that to Democrats or liberals, but progressives like Paul Krugman and others and Ezra Klein, who went out and tried to label this on the Tea Party movement, which was false. It wasn't based on empirical evidence. We had irresponsible statements by Senator Linda Lopez, Arizona State Senator, who said this was he was attached to maybe a Tea Party, or maybe he was an Afghanistan veteran, which impugns both the military and the movement. And the irresponsible statement of Clarence Dupnick, the sheriff, who a law enforcement officer is supposed to work on evidence and facts, but he interjected a political debate. Those started that string of attacks. And rather than look at the issue, we ended up looking at the hyperbole that came out of this.
And what was your reaction?
Very disappointed. The dialogue seemed to deteriorate, as David said, so quickly. This is a nation that has sustained great tragedy, and when there are assassination attempts on elected officials, it's important that this country come together. Those American flags that adorned our homes and our vehicles post 9/11 should have been a decade later the immediate response. Instead, the dialogue went to gun control, to the debate on immigration policy, to the faith of the member of Congress, and then every party trying to vie for a comment. We have to remind ourselves that we're an example of how democracy works. And one of the poorest examples is when we don't lead by our words. And we have to caution elected officials, and it's good that the cameras are on in many ways, because when things are extreme, we actually are able to develop the sense of propriety and character of our elected officials. And I tip my hat to those that understand that this was a member of Congress who was once a Republican, became a Democrat, but was felled by an individual that was not well. And people took as great solace in that extraordinary mother who spoke of her 9-year-old that was killed that day as a member of Congress that was put in harm's way. We have to imagine, we have to understand that if we're trying to advance the betterment of this country, it starts in the way we speak. Our children are watching us.
And this is something the president mentioned as well at the memorial this past week. President Obama spoke about coming together in the wake of the tragedy, and he talked about civility when it comes to political debate.
At a time when our discourse has become so sharply polarized, at a time when we are far too eager to lay the blame for all that ails the world at the feet of those who happen to think differently than we do, it's important for us to pause for a moment and make sure that we're talking with each other in a way that heals, not in a way that wounds.
All right, not in a way that wounds. Now, can we go forward from this? Certainly, Sarah Palin had her own message where she felt as if she had been unfairly targeted in the whole debate post the shooting. And then, once again, her comments were attacked by some. What did you make of that? And can we go forward given what happened in the response to her response?
Well, we can. I'd like to start with the president's comments, which I think struck the right tone. What I would have liked to have seen the president do at the end of his comments was tell the thugs, which is what they are, that were playing the blame game, that you need to stop it, because regardless of party, they injected in a human tragedy, a 9-year-old girl, a federal judge, a senior citizen from New Jersey, and a number of others, and the wounded. They injected a hate game into this. So I would have liked to have seen him go further and say, stop this right now. I'm your president. I'm asking you to bring it back. I happen to know Will Marshall, who did the DLC map, the target map in 2004. Will and I have done panels together. We have a lot of respect for him. He didn't intend it to be a hateful thing. Neither did Sarah Palin. It's a political tool. It's a communications tool.
Let's talk a little bit about elected officials going forward here, because certainly, passions do run high in politics. No matter what is said, people have very strong feelings, and you want to be as accessible as an elected official. You held public office. What is the right balance, and how do we ensure that this doesn't happen again?
I was a municipal official, an elected official. I was a mayor. I was involved for 11 years. There were threats that are leveled. I would have people call on me in my home, and I found that the best place to meet constituents or individuals were shopping malls. We are an approachable government. We are a representative government. We should not set up an emotional or physical perimeter around those that we are sought or obligated to represent. That said, I am always wondering why we are putting a Band-Aid on a cancer, always a Monday quarterback. Why aren't we reacting to these events? Why is it from the proprietors that have shopping malls that we don't see any actual video yet publicly of the actual shooting? From the sheriff's office or local law enforcement, a presence. From the staff, God bless that intern that held her in place and kept her alive. But why wasn't there somebody who would assess any security, or at least a perimeter where metal detectors and at least a visual presence? Now, if a person is a Looney Tune and they're going to take action, and I carry a firearm myself because of the justifiable needs and the threats that have been leveled against me in cases that I work as a lawyer. But if a person is not well, you can set up as much a perimeter as you want, and that person is going to go through anyway. But we have to make sure that we keep that diamond in the rough shined, and that is American jurisprudence, American elected public service, that we do not take that representative taste away from people, and that's the challenge that faces us.
You want to give people access to the government. Unfortunately, that's going to have to be our last word on this subject, but I want to thank you both so much for your input, and it was great to have you here. Thank you both, Michael Wild and David Webb. Next, Haiti. A year later, the steps taken here at home to help those stricken by the devastating earthquake, when Good Day Street Talk continues. Stay tuned.
Get my